time. This weekend was a surprise for me. The first time I'd done a married man, though God knows I've looked at him in the past. And when it was all through, though, he could say he'd still been mostly faithful. I threw this small party for a dozen or so friends Friday night, sort of a kickoff for the July 4th weekend. John came up from the city on his way to the Sierras for a weekend's backpacking, something his wife never really liked. I think she went home to Mother or some such. Anyway, the party went late, and when it was breaking up, John asked if he could stay on the sleeper in the living room, rather than drive to dark on at night to a dark campground. I said, sure. John and I made up the sleeper, and then I went to take a shower. When I came out in my robe, he was in bed and reading. I said goodnight and turned to head for my bedroom when he made some funny comment about what he'd just read. I laughed too and went over to see more. When he showed me the article, I recognized it, and we started talking. I was soon sitting on the side of his bed listening and watching. As I looked, I realized what a real cutie he really was. All that dark hair, the strong shoulders, oh God, I feel gay for reading this. All I could see of his body, and those great teeth that showed when he smiled. I got to thinking, what a great find his wife had. Then somehow he made some gesture and his hand ended up on my leg. And I really don't know how to explain this, but my hand suddenly went there on top of his. He looked at me funny and gave me a gentle squeeze as he tried to pull away. When I returned, he smiled and said, Anne, I can't, really. You know the speech. I just murmured and bent down to kiss him, of course. The robe fell open, and of course his hand went inside, and about halfway through the kiss, I knew we were in trouble. We sort of stayed that way for a while, and then I moved my legs up onto the bed. His hand went from side to my back, and his other hand went to my butt, stroking it gently. Jesus Christ. I pulled the covers from under me and ran my hand down his chest, across his stomach. He was so strong, too. I nibbled on his ear, and he just moaned. Well, this was fun and all that, but he was right. He is married after all. His head was now on my breast, and I was going to have to decide something soon. I made a decision, sat up, and then swung my leg over to straddle him. He looked disappointed as I sat up, and then delighted as I moved my leg across his body. He was on his back, and I was sitting across his thighs. Now he could put both hands on my breast. He was so strong and yet so gentle. His hands just sort of came up on my rib cage and stroked my breast from underneath to the nipple. I found I could sort of sag into his palms. I grabbed his cock and began to stroke it, and then every once in a while, needing a little oral contact, I bent down and kissed him or let him suck my tits. I was warm all over, and every part of him I touched was warm too. Then his hand went around and began to play with my butt again. Shut up. I lifted myself up and moved up until I was directly above his cock. I was really wet by now, and he could feel the cum running out. I set my pussy on his balls and just stroked it up his shaft. Uplift, back down, and get it again. His cock was really getting wet. He just moaned and then moved his hand to grab both my cheeks. He tried to move me just that bit further up to where he could slide in, and I really wanted to, but I knew things would be different tomorrow and next week. No, I said, but wait, he was getting even louder and really throbbing. His hand began alternating from my breast to my butt. His legs went up and then down, and I could feel his pelvis thrusting in time to my stroking. His eyes shut, and that great smile of his was all, of course, his face. Wow, did he leave? I could feel myself throbbing, too. I was working up a sweat. I almost laughed out loud when I realized I'd now need another shower, but he felt so good between me. I could not stop. My clit was bumping the top of his cock every time I slid up there, and I was just about out of control until there, and there again, and again. I was coming and the contractions just wouldn't stop. I collapsed onto him with my legs wrapped around his thighs, the feet tucked between his calves. My breast brushed against his chest, and his hand stroking my butt and my back. I really don't think he came, but he was looking really good. Besides, it was too wet down there to really tell in the half light. I would have loved to stay all night, but like I said, he was married and it just wouldn't do to have slept with him. After a few moments, I tore myself away and staggered back to my bed, firmly and quietly shutting the door behind me. No ideas, John. I was asleep almost before I was in my own bed. Cold sheets. When I awoke, it was late Sunday morning and John was gone. He'd stripped the bed and left a pile of musky-smelling sheets. I'm sure he had to hike a few extra miles to get me out of his system. Oh, God. That was a great story. That was the fucking...
Yeah, I'm gonna get myself now.
The end. Dude, those oh my God.